Hello, lovelies, and happy new year. This is day 2 of me reading through the Bible chronologically. What that means is I am reading through in order of the events and not in the order of the book. So we saw in chapter 3 that it's where the sin came in and man is banished from the Garden of Eden and cherubims are placed at the gates. Now, something to note is despite the fact that man was chased away from the garden or banished, there is a form of relationship between man and God at this point. It is not fully like cut off. They were best of friends when they were in the garden. That is my definition. And then now they are kind of estranged. There's still some sort of relationship, though not as it was. So in chapter 4, we see the first of springs. We see Cain and then we see Abel. Cain chose to be a farmer. Abel chose to be a shepherd. And the reason you can see now, there's a point where they come and they have to give sacrifices to the Lord. Cain just does not like put much thought into it. He just gives something. And Abel puts it into thought, does his considerations, and he offers the best portions. And something that stood out for me at this time is he gave firstborn lambs. And if you have been a reader of the word, you would know that firstborns belong to God. And this is a revelation that Abel has, which shows you that there's some sort of relationship because this is not something that you know at the top of your head. And now this would explain why Abel's I am not meaning this is why his sacrifice was accepted, but it is some sort of in line with the character of God. So Abel's sacrifice is accepted, Cain's is not. Cain is mad, angry, he's doing the comparison game, he's jealous, he's angry. God shows up and asks him, like, why are you angry? Cain doesn't answer. We are not sure of where he answers, but God warns Cain of sin that is approaching, crouching at his door, which means that we are not really supposed to have all these things. Like, we're supposed to be dependent on God and all of that. So the anger festers in Cain, and one day he invites Abel like out to the field, and then he just kills him. God shows up again to Cain and is asking like, Cain, where's your brother Abel? Cain is His response was arrogant, I would say. He's like, I'm not my brother's keeper. Now, God is all knowing, but he's now asking Cain a question. For me, that stood out for me because it's like God is inviting him to come to him with honesty. He's inviting him to be vulnerable with him and giving him like a form of safe space to repent. But Cain does not pick on that. So God will now displays his sovereignty. He's like, Abel's blood is already crying out to me from the ground. So I'm gonna curse you and banish you from the land and banish you from my presence. So Cain is basically rendered homeless at this point. And now the most diabolical thing is that now Cain is afraid of being killed. He just killed his brother, but now he's like, but um I am afraid someone is gonna kill me. And God, in His mercies and in His grace, He just tells him that I'm gonna put a mark on you that will distinguish you, that no one kills you. So, and He gives a promise, sort of promise, that whoever kills Cain will have like a sevenfold punishment of what he has. Because the punishment was no matter what he does, no matter the hard work, like the ground will never bear anything good for him. So after that, we get now to the genealogy of Cain. He went towards the east, got a wife that is like one of his sisters, and we have like the sons. You can see through the fourth generation is where we have the first mention of polygamy. That was Lamech. Lamech had two wives, and from the two wives we have three sons, and the first mention of a daughter, that is Nama. And something that stood out for me in this lineage is the three sons were really gifted, and the first daughter to ever be mentioned by name is now Nama. So for the first wife, Jebel raised livestock, that is like Abel, and then Juba was the first to play the flute, and then for the other wife who now had Nema as a daughter, and to Balkain, who was like an expert in forging iron and bronze. and that is chapter 4. We move on to chapter 5, which gives us a genealogy from Adam all the way to Noah. And these guys lived for long. I mean, almost a century. The longest guy to live was Methuselah, who lived like 969 years, and the shortest was Enoch, who was in a very close relationship with God and lived 365 years. Yes, so we move on to chapter 6, where now we see the wickedness of man come to play. So multiplication has happened at this point. There's like a huge number of people on earth. It's not like the family of Adam, like watu wamezaana. So now the sons of God somehow have relations with female wives, female human beings. And something that is really, this is really distorted because one, the sons of God are angels. Angels have lived in the glory of God. They have some sort of divinity, and now human females are fallen because sin has already come into the equation. So this forms a sort of distortion because the the lineage of man is no longer clean. It has some form of divinity in it, and this is not like within the plan of God. And you can see like the children that they brought forth were Nephilims, the giants, who are now considered like saviors and good warriors of the time. And God is looking at all of this and it is breaking his heart. He's so angry and he regrets. He regrets making man. He regrets putting man on earth. And now he's come to a place where he's willing to destroy the earth and everything in it. He's willing to just wipe everything clean. But there's a but. Noah now finds favor with God. Noah is a righteous man. He was blameless. And how is this possible in such an environment? He walked in close relationship with God. And that was another light bulb moment for me. In a land of wickedness, in a land of so many things going on, you can continue living, being righteous, being blameless, if and only if you walk very closely with the Lord. So now God reveals his plan to Noah that he's gonna wipe out everything clean. He's gonna wipe out all the animals, the birds, everything that walks on dry land and the birds basically. And he also mentioned something that he's gonna wipe out even the earth, and this reminded me of Genesis chapter 1, where that time frame where the earth was full of water and the Spirit of the Lord was hovering over the faces of the earth. So, but now at this point, the earth is no longer formless and void. So, but he's gonna wipe out everything and then bring forth like a new earth. God gives Noah the details to a T of like the materials you're gonna use, the measurements you're gonna use, everything. Like this shows the grace of God because God is the one who knows the sizes of all animals. I mean, who knows the size of an elephant? But that is beside the point. So if Noah was to go finding out everything about every animal and panga how all this is gonna work, it would have taken ages. But God, in his grace and his mercy, he gives everything so that the work that Noah now has to do is to be obedient and do what the Lord has commanded him. So now Noah begins to create the ark, and he's instructed to bring in pairs, a male and a female, of course, because if everything is gonna be wiped out, they have to now multiply. So he brings in a male and a female of all the animals, the creatures that crawl, the birds, and also he's told to store up enough food for his family and for all the animals. So this is where we end chapter 6, and we can see that a lot has happened within a time frame of like 1,000+ years, but the Lord and the character of God is still very evident.